Right, hello. Well, you'll notice that I'm driving a thing that's not a Defender. What I'm driving here is a D5, and actually it's my second D5, but that's a long story. What I'm doing is I'm actually travelling up the Bonanza Pass, which is in BC. I'm on my way home from dropping my mum off at the aeroporto, and I've been jingling up back, and I stopped last night, and I just thought that what I'd do is a short video comparing the D5 with the Defender. I will in another video. I've got lots of videos, they're all over the shop, and I've got to edit them, but my mum, as I said, my mum's been over for 3 weeks, so although I've recorded some videos, I haven't had a chance to edit them. I've no idea how that's going to turn out, but that's another story altogether. Anyway, you should have one coming up fairly soon whereby I put this roof rack on, and you'll see, perhaps, well, maybe you won't see, but I fitted what they call the versatile roof rack to this D5. We'll all know it as the Expedition roof rack, but that's I don't know why Land Rover changed the name, but it's the same thing basically. This one's slightly louder than the Defender, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to record this video while I'm pulling up this bank, because I wanted to talk to you about the difference between the Defender and the Discovery. And one of the things that I wanted to discuss was the flappy paddles. Now, I'm going to try and ignore the fact that my Defender had lots of dramas, because it did, many and varied, because it would be a bit unfair of me to compare like a good D5 with a bad Defender, if you see what I mean, and that's not, it's a bit of an odd sort of thing to do really. So I'm going to imagine that my Defender was right, or as right as they can be, and we'll talk about why I don't have it anymore in another video. What I've got to tell you is that I changed this predominantly because my Defender was broken, and you're aware of that, I'm sure, and I couldn't get it fixed. Land Rover wouldn't fix it. It was definitely broken, and many people have since contacted me and asked me how I've gone on with my various faults, because surprisingly enough they've got them as well. It's not surprising, is it really? So Land Rover, if you are watching this, there are some things on that Defender that you haven't fixed, and you need to fix them because they're broken, and I'm not the only one that's getting them, these faults. They're sort of manifold. I'm going to close this because one of the downsides to this roof rack is that it is slightly noisy. There are many and varied faults, and just denying that they exist isn't going to cut it in the long run. This engine that's in this D5 here is the TDV6, and you know you've had a problem with this since 2007 when you brought it out in the LR3, or 2005 or whenever it was you brought it out, and you've not fixed that either. So stop playing about, because somewhere along the line there's going to be a massive class action lawsuit one way or another, and you're going to lose your hat. Anyway, carrying on. So I've got rid of the D5, the Defender, because Land Rover wouldn't fix the faults, and I've replaced it with this. Now there's no name yet. I was sort of toying with Siegfried or Jeffrey, but I'm not quite sure what yet. This D5 is a singularly ugly thing, as you know, and they're not my favourite vehicle by any stretch of the imagination. However, what they are is diesel, which is what you might remember I was looking for. The rear end of these vehicles has attracted quite a significant amount of attention, and not surprisingly, because it is terrible. Now you'll notice that this particular one is a TD6. This is an HSE Lux, and I have thrown on it the wheels and tyres off my Defender, as you can see. These are 265/60/20 Coopers. This is in the standard road height, and so there's just enough, isn't there, really, just room around it, as you see. They don't rub, certainly don't rub on the back, and they don't rub on the front. lower it a touch, because that has got a 15mm or ½ inch, I suppose, lift on it, electronic lift, because I didn't know whether it was going to rub or not. I'm being covered in bugs here, which is, you might hear me blowing a bunch, but you can see it's fairly close here. Right at the front here, you can see that it's quite close to catching. I'll try and zoom in there, look. So there's a little bit of space, but not a lot, and I have a feeling if I hadn't got that little bit of a lift in, it probably wouldn't fit. But anyway, there they are. Cooper 265 60/20, straight off my other one. They're probably about half worn now. It's a bit hard to tell, isn't it? But it's got the front, whatever they call this, the dynamic undervalancy bit thing, and you know, that's what it is, isn't it? It reduces a little bit of approach angle here and there, but I think it's probably meant to make it look a little bit sleeker and sportier, or whatever they want it to look like. Urban, I think, is the thing, isn't it? They've got a little cutout instead of that nice little roll up thing. Now, it's not the tidiest example on the road, and my last D5 was an SI6, which has a bulletproof engine, but I really wanted the diesel, and I shouldn't have bought the SI6. There's nothing wrong with it. Beautiful car. Little more uncomfortable than this for lots of different reasons. I do wonder whether or not JLR have tuned them a little differently, because this one's a lot softer. I know I've got my fat tyres on, but this one's a lot softer. One of the reasons I wanted to film it was because, as you can see, I'm coming up here. You perhaps can't see, I don't know how much you can see out of the thing, but I've tried to get my cameras in the window, but we're getting a bit of wobble on here. Because this is a new phone and it's not as well secured into the window, and it might drop out at any moment. I've had it fall out of the window twice, but you can see that we're going through some curves here, and these flappy paddles are a massive oversight on the Defender. They should have had them. Don't understand why they wouldn't have them. I know it's not just about sports. You don't have flappy paddles for sports alone. Mountain driving necessitates rapid gear changes, and going about up here trying to change the gear, especially when you've got drop 20 of them, is just a nightmare. It's just absolute insanity. Land Rover should have fitted them. Now, I know the Defender comes with them with the new V8, and presumably there will be some sort of backwards sort of fit whereby we can retrofit them in, but the point is they should have been there in the first place. I don't know why they weren't. That makes a massive difference to the driving of the vehicle, especially when you do a lot of mountains like I do. The second thing is this armrest, which I find particularly comfortable. I know a lot of people don't like them, and that's cool, but I love them. One of the benefits of having one is that if you don't use it, you can just flip it up and it's out of the way. But if you do use it, then you can pull it down and it can be more comfortable. Land Rover should have done something like that on the Defender. I understand that the reason they probably didn't was the same reason that they didn't make other changes, and that was because the Defender's a Defendery vehicle. It has to be more rugged and so on and so forth, and they were trying to go about that kind of aesthetic. But in reality, drivability and usability are in part the same thing, and they should be. They should have done it, basically, because if you've got it, you can use it, and you don't have it, you can't use it. The D5 rolls around like a stuck pig. It's a nightmare, and Land Rover have tried to fix it by giving you squeezy bolsters that tell you that the stop you rolling about, really, but it does roll around a lot in a way that the Land Rover with its dynamic adaptive suspension did not. The Defender really did hold the road much better than this D5. The new MY21 D5s are much better, I am told, and do sort out all of that with their adaptive suspension, and I think they have given them a good tweak, and that makes it even harder to choose between the two. This D5 that I'm currently driving, 2018, is quite literally half the value of the Defender. Now I know it's a couple of years old and it's got 80,000 kilometres on it, but that's only 50,000 mile, and my Defender had 30,000 mile on when I dropped it back, 32,000 mile. And you can see me going up and down the gears here like I'm playing Barks to Carter on the flappy paddles. But anyway, the vehicle is half the value, and I know it's a couple of years old and the new ones are roughly equivalently priced to the Defenders, but I'm trying to describe the differences between these two models. And some time ago, about 6 months ago maybe, I did a 6-month review of the Defender, and one of the things that I commented was that for the extra money you weren't getting anything out of the Defender, and I stand by that. I mean, this isn't quite as comfortable, and the Defender is a far superior vehicle in terms of upgraded suspension and other such things, but the things that detract from the Defender are many and varied. You'll know that the space in the back is problematic. The fuel economy is disastrous. This has been balking up and down the mountains for 4,000 miles now. It's got oversized tyres on. These are 265 60/20s, which are off my Defender. It's got a greater rolling resistance, and I've picked it up by ½ an inch to account for the extra tyre size so that it doesn't rub. Electronic uplift, I don't particularly like it, but ½ an inch isn't going to kill anybody. And so with that extra wind resistance and extra rolling resistance, I've still got a fuel economy of 31.7 miles to the gallon here. Yeah, 31.7 miles to the gallon over the last 4,600 miles in the mountains, pulling and passing and doing all of that kind of stuff. So it's a massive upgrade from the 15-16 miles to the gallon I was getting with the Defender. And that really makes a difference, because if you're paying, I mean, I bet I do 4,000 miles a month, maybe 3,000 miles a month, but many anyway. And when you're doing that kind of mileage, like half the fuel bill is quite important. This literally does twice the fuel that the Defender does. Now, there's a lot of folk riding around in a diesel Defender scratching their head going, well, I don't know what you're up about. The issue is that in North America you just can't get that engine, because Land Rover and California and all that nonsense. And so you're stuck with the P400 or the P300. And while they're right enough engines in their own regard, the fuel economy is frankly disastrous. Before I bought this, I had the SI6, which I think I told you about. That's the V6 engine. And there's some numpties on the groups, on the Facebook groups, arguing that I am comparing a diesel with the P400 for some reason. I'm not. I'm comparing the P400 with the V6 petrol and the V8 petrol that was in the Range Rover. The V6 in the D5 and the V8 in the Range Rover. Both supercharged, both make a lovely noise. Both go like stink. The V6, when I drove the silver one back through the mountains, it made 25 miles to the gallon with standard springs and standard tyres on, and standard suspension and everything, and no roof rack. This has got the roof rack, which will knock, I don't know, ½ a mile to the gallon off, and the tyres, which will knock, I don't know, ½ a mile, maybe mile to the gallon off. And it did 26 miles to the gallon. And so what I'm trying to say is, if Land Rover could have done that with a V6, then why are we riding around in a P400, which admittedly has more power, but does 10 miles to the gallon less than that? And the answer is because Land Rover have screwed up somewhere. Now, I should say at this point, because I bang my gums about the engines, when I test drove the silver SI6, I actually drove here and back in a very sort of rapid rate of knots. Very rapid rate of knots. And there'll be a video there that'll clue you in on just exactly how fast I did it, but that's another story. The P400 is a superb engine in the mountains. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it in the mountains. It's a giddy up and go engine. It's got all the power, all the torque, plenty of passing speed. This TD6 has the torque but struggles for the top end. So if you want to pass something going uphill, it has the torque to pull past it, but it sort of runs out of steam a little bit, really. The P400, of course, didn't run out of anything. Absolutely superb engine, and I don't think Land Rover have made a better engine ever in terms of pressing on and being a bit sort of aggressive maybe in your driving. Where the P400 fails is it's absolutely incompetent at the low range speed gentle maneuvers. It just can't do them. And for all of those that are saying I don't have those problems in the P400, I'm going to say either you're not using it in the way I'm using it, to be progressive and gentle and controllable off-road, or there's something different about yours compared to many other vehicles. I know at least 4 people who've taken their P400s back because they're of no use to them farming. They can't back up to things gently on rough terrain, and I know one lady who had to back up a little bit of a curb to get in her house, and she said it was a nightmare. As soon as you come up against the curb, you give it a little bit of gas, and then it's too much gas. It's all the gas and no control. So if you don't have that problem, either you're not doing it the same way that many of us are, or there's something different about your car, and that may be the case. But nevertheless, in my experience, it's uncontrollable. You can't use it in a useful manner off-road. A couple of months ago I was trying to back up to a gate, I think I've told you this, and I'd got some rough terrain to get to, and obviously I didn't want to shove my tow bar through this big fence, so I was going fairly steady, and I was trying to give it some beans, some gas to get the torque to go over this bit of rough terrain, and it just shot off. I've done this a lot. 2 million miles or more I've got now in driving experience. I know what I'm doing when I'm pressing the gas pedal, and I was pressing it very gently in order to just overcome the resistance of those objects, and off it shot. It's almost like that electronic supercharger gives it too much beans too quickly, and then you've got too much power, and once your obstacles overcome, you've got 400 horsepower belting away and you can't control it. And I think that's the problem. But anyway, I will say that on the highway, and if you wanted, I'm sure the bloody thing was tuned by Mika Hacken, and the Land Rover have just got him round and said, I want this thing go fast on the track, make it go fast, make it suit the American market, make it go fast and make it go hard. And he did, and they've fixed it, and it's great. But if you actually want to do anything useful with it, farming wise or work wise or off road wise, you're wasting your time. It's not the right thing. Anyway, that's another story. So here you are, this TD6, sorry, he's got, it's not the SD6, the SD6 isn't available in North America because Canada, and so this is just the TD6. The SD6 I think would have been the perfect fit really for me, but here we are jingling along. It's got all the torque to go up the hills, it's got the engine braking, which is something I've been complaining about before, and yes, if we pay attention to that muppet on the Facebook groups who bats his gums readily and says I'm comparing apples to oranges, and no, the SI6, that V6 AJ V6 engine in that silver D5 that I had perfect engine braking. Well, not perfect, but very, very good engine braking. Going down the mountains, I could drop a bunch of gears with my flappy paddles and it would hold itself back. P400 doesn't do that, and I don't care who you are, how you try. I've shown you videos. Doesn't work. The P400 is nowhere near as good as the SI6, which is the supercharged V6 by AGV8, the Land Rover Jaguar engine. So I am comparing apples with apples. 300 horsepower, 3 litre displacement, roughly the same number, well, the same number of pistons, roughly the same displacement. Very exactly the same displacement. Should have the same sort of engine braking. Doesn't. This does have the engine braking. In terms of creature comforts, these buttons here that control the things, there's a nice haptic feedback to them. There's a nice little click when you press them, and that would have been nice on the Defender. They missed that. They've got the buttons and they're very similar, but the haptic feedback's missing, that little click that you get. I'd also quite like to see the controls here rather than within Pivy. This has got the low traction launch here, which is far more intuitive when you're in snow. You just want to press the button or sand or whatever you're in. You just want to get gone instead of fiddling about in here. And speaking of fiddling about in here, I was a big fan of Pivy Pro, and the artwork and the graphics, or graphics I suppose you call them, were much better. This does seem a bit dated, but in fairness, having used this now for 2 weeks with the silver one and the black one, I actually prefer this. I think they call it In Control. I actually prefer it because somehow the things seem a little bit more intuitive. They seem in the right place in a way that they weren't before, and so I think this is the infotainment system is better in here. I was a little bit worried about the sound. I was worried that this stereo system wouldn't be good as the Defender's, because the Defender's was quite frankly outstanding. This has got the surround 875 watts or whatever it is surround sound from Meridian, and I have just been listening to Amiga and their Gamma Police album, and there's a couple of songs on there that really, that space rock prog rock stuff really is a perfect match on here. It's outstanding, and I think it probably has the edge on the Defender, although the Defender had a slightly better sub somehow. It had a slightly better response on the sub. The Defender seats are far more comfortable. These seats look pretty, but they're not actually very supportive in a way that's nice. It's got some bolsters in it which stops you sliding about, but my sit bone here on my left hand cheek for some reason or other is quite sore. And I mean, I know it's got a bit of life about it, but it's not that much life about it. It's just not spongy enough really somehow. The Defender really does take the biscuit. There's more spare there's more space in the second row seats in the D5, but the seats are far less comfortable. Again, they've fixed that in the D5, in the new D5, the MY21 and on, but the Defender's seats I find much more comfortable. The kids, the small pan lids, have said that they prefer this D5 in terms of comfort and visibility to the Defender, but I think that might be more to do with the fact that they've got fancy twiddly knobs to control the heating, and I'm sure that if you spec your Defender with all that fancy tech, they could do that as well. The ride comfort in this, of course, it does roll a bit, and I don't think it is as comfortable as the Defender, and I think that might be because it's got 50,000 miles on it, but also because I think they really did knock the ball out of the park when they made that the D7X platform for the Defender. It really is very, very good, and it sort of handles the curves better. The seats, as I said, aren't as comfortable. The driving position in the D5 not quite as comfortable for me. I don't like to have my legs out. I like them more down, and I like the rake of the window to be less. So the Defender's sitting position was a little bit better. In terms of visibility, this is pretty good. Probably on a par with the Defender, but it's slightly different. The rake of the window means that you have more of this A-pillar. I don't know that you got more of it, but there's more here, which may or may not be a detraction for you if you struggle with that kind of visibility. I don't like being able, I always feel a bit claustrophobic when I come up towards the window. I like that bit of extra space I had in the Defender. The hands-free for the phone in the Defender was better. It came through all the speakers. This one only uses these two or maybe one of these, and that does make it a bit distorted. The visibility through the mirrors is slightly better in the Defender, but not much. The rear load space capacity in the Defender is larger, I believe, on paper, but less practical in the sense that the back door isn't really the full height of the Defender, so you've got to sort of put things in and up and sit them down. This one you can roll things in, but there is a little bit of a lip, and of course it tapers down to the back end, and that's not the best. I haven't yet loaded this up, but I do suspect this would be easier to load in the more traditional sort of way, where you just shove things in and what have you. The Defender, as I've mentioned before, you had to sort of stack stuff up, which was okay if you could strap them down, but if you couldn't, it's a bit of a drama. The Defender, my Defender, was a 5-seater, and so I was able to use the underfloor storage to hide all my gear. This is a 7-seater, and without that underfloor storage, I am struggling to hide the things that are normally hide, such as seats and tools and bits of recovery gear and coats and emergency blankets and other such things. It will be my intention to pull out the whatever you call it, the seats, and I'll do a video on that, and then I'll box in the underneath and make that usable as well, because I can't, I'm never going to use the 7 seats. I don't know why it's an only option over here and you can't get the underfloor storage. I have priced up Land Rover's bits for it, $2.5 grand. So Firthy's going to get about with his with his MDF and his plywood, and we're going to make one and paint it black, and hopefully it'll work, because I'm not paying $2.5 grand for a box under my deck. What else have I got to tell you? The dog seems to have a little bit more comfort in the back, and he seems to move about less, so I think I don't know whether he's got more space, our Jip, or whether he just feels a bit more comfortable in it. But Taryn told me that when she was in the back seat with the small devices while Mum was here, she found that the back seats were a lot more slidey, and it did make her feel a bit nauseated, which is unfortunate in terms of that effect not happening in the Defender. So there's clearly something about the body roll and the way it wobbles about in the corners that makes this a little bit less comfortable even for people in the back. I haven't tried the 7-row seats out, so I've no idea how they are. They do like, the kids and Taryn like the attachments in the back, but like I said, if you spec the Defender, you've got that as well. This has, or it seems to have, less of a turning circle. I might just get underneath and give the stops a little bit of a whine somewhere along the line, because I don't think it turns quite as nicely as the Defender did. In terms of off-road, I can't really help you there much, because there's not a lot. I've not done a lot with this off-road, if I've done anything at all. This has the rear differential and mine didn't, and you can just hear the roof rack now, can't you? It does get profoundly noisy, more noisy even than the Defenders. I knew that was going to be part of the problem going into the issue, going into the fitting of it, but I used that roof rack so much that I couldn't be without it, really, especially when I discovered that I'm going to just pull this out of the window because I've got a feeling it's going to come off. The original roof rack, this came with the roof bars and the cross rails, and they're fixed in a particular position, and that's a bit of a drama, because of course if you do want to move that to accommodate different types of equipment, mountain bikes or kayaks or whatever it is you want to put up there, or big pieces of wood, you actually can't move it up and down. Looks like you could, and perhaps you could drill some holes. I don't know how that would work, but it doesn't seem like it moves properly. This roof rack is a versatile roof rack, same as the Expedition roof rack, same design, Thule rack. Doesn't hold as much in the way of alleged dynamics load carrying capacity, but the other one on the Defender did hold a lot more, both dynamic and static. This one's much less, but I'm sure we'll do okay with it. The biggest detraction from this in terms of usability and off-road ability, I think, since I've added the tyres and wheels, there's really no difference in fact, it's better in terms of breakover angle and ground clearance than was the Defender. The approach angle will be reduced, as you probably anticipated, as a function of the dynamic, whatever it is at the front, the dynamic spoiler, and the departure angle is obviously seriously reduced. But I would imagine that it would be less robust, I would imagine. it's fairly hardcore, you know, underneath, even for a bit of a car. Not like Land Rover though, is it? Not like that Defender. Must have something about it though, because they give you some, don't they, and things. But just as good off-road, if that makes sense. We'll just whoosh that Toyota. The roof rack and usability, it doesn't have the ladder on the side, and I have loaded a bed up just recently, and I did regret the shift at that point, because the ladder was an excellent tool to be able to stand on the top of the roof rack and strap your load down carefully and safely. This has got all the other toys on that the Defender had, really. The pannier, I really liked the pannier, but that was, you know, you can't have one of those on this, so that's that, I guess, until somebody comes out with a retrofit. I've figured a way of doing it, but I don't have the tools and I don't have the steel. I mean, it's easily done, but you know, I don't have the equipment to do it with. So I'm just going to have to store some of the other stuff in the back and underneath the deck, and it's a little bit less useful than the pannier, which was a great way of dealing with things that you wanted to keep handy and dirty. The front tow hoop recovery position on this, I haven't looked at it yet, but I imagine it's under one of those removable things, and perhaps there's a steel thing for that. I do know that there's a bumper modification that allows you to have a hidden winch. I haven't just got there yet. I used to be super into those hidden winches and stuff, but I don't use them enough to warrant the money, really. Handy when you've got them, but I don't know that I'd pay the money to have them fitted these days. Same was true of the Defender, and in some respects I'm glad that I didn't install it. I was toying with it for the YouTube channel, really, more than actual practical use, but I'm glad I didn't, because it was a lot of money, and the Defender had to go back anyway. The heads-up display on this is a nice touch, but again, that's the thing you can have on your Defender if you spec it properly enough or highly enough. In conclusion, I would say that the Defender is a better vehicle, especially if you can get the diesel. In fact, only if you can get the diesel. If you can get a diesel, you know, and you want to use it for work and touring and all that kind of stuff, I would say the Defender was a better tool. This is definitely a better tool because it's half the price and does twice the miles to the gallon. So in terms of my needs, this is a far better vehicle. You know, it cost me half as much in finance, because it's bank owns it. I'm not a rich man, as you know. So the bank owns it, so it costs me half as much, and it does twice as much a gallon. Doing all the miles I do, that's actually a considerable expense. I will be saving probably $350 or $400 a month, which is the price of well, it's the price of the finance on this, basically, is what it is. So I think this is a better vehicle for me. It's certainly more usable in the mountains with the flappy paddles and the engine torque and all of that kind of stuff, but the Defender was a more usable vehicle in terms of practical storage and usefulness, and the ladder and the other things. There was a reason I bought it, but that engine just really meant that it was impractical in terms of actual usefulness to me. If you just want to run around the mountains and career around like a Mika Hakkinen, flat out, showing off how much fuel you can use, then the P400 is a fantastic engine. But if you want to use it progressively and carefully and usefully and off-road, it's probably not the right tool for the job. The comfort of the Defender, I think, is slightly better, so if you do a lot of miles and you can get the diesel, and I believe the diesels are doing somewhere upwards of 40 miles to the gallon, which improves even on this. And so if you can get the diesel, then the Defender's a no-brainer really if you're buying new. And that's about what I've got to say really. I'm not unhappy with my decision in the way that I was unhappy with my decision about the Defender as time went on. I mean, I did love it, didn't I, as you know, and the opportunity to reunite with the community after having the Range Rover was very important to me. And so the Defender really sort of fitted that job. You know, I am pleased. Well, I'm chuffed, as they say. Taryn didn't really know what chuff meant. It's a bit of a very specific word, isn't it, in English? It's got a very sort of particular usage. But anyway, I am chuffed that you're hanging about and you still enjoy me content and me waxing poetic about me idioms and things. I hope to drop a couple more in every now and then, but anyway. So there you go, that's basically all I've got to say. Am I happy with my decision? Yes. Is this cheaper? Yes, it's about $1,000 a month cheaper to me to run, which is important. Thank you very much for tuning into this particular video. I haven't given this car a name yet. I'm thinking Jeffrey or Siegfried. Ziggy, it might be a Ziggy. I don't know. It'll come to me. I've got to ride around in him a bit before it comes on, so stand by for the benaming of the vehicle, and then we'll I'm sure it'll have a bit more of a character by then. But please do like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next video. Cheerio.